welcome to a very quick velocity kinetics video. I must apologise for the complete and utter lack of content recently. I've had a lot of issues, so to speak. The issues I've been having have varied in multiple ways. So last year I worked for the customer facing side of the company I work for, and I was covering two different places very regularly. I was going between Stowmarket and Ipswich quite a lot, and when I was in Ipswich, which was becoming more and more frequent, it meant that I had no time, especially on the day where I took Sarah to work. The place we lived at the time, if I was taking Sarah to work for a day shift, my day would begin at about 4:45 in the morning, 4:30, depending on how well I was sleeping or how much I felt like I needed that extra sleep before my alarm clock went off. We'd leave the house about 20 to 6 in the morning. Not 20 to 6. 20 to 7 in the morning, sorry. 20 to 7 in the morning. I would then go and pick up one of my colleagues who lives in town, because I'd have to, from where I was taking Sarah to work to, I'd have to double back anyway, to get to the A14, so it just made sense for me to pick up my colleague. So we were getting to Ipswich pretty early, but then it meant we could get started with a lot of work, rather than waiting for my colleagues who had a slight timekeeping issue turning up. This was then often followed by me staying late, because sometimes my colleague that I brought in, sometimes it was only an extra 15-20 minute wait for me, which is no different to how long it would take for me. If I got the train, if I was going from where my work was in Ipswich to the train station, it's about most of that walk, so it made no difference to me to wait 15-20 minutes, especially if it meant if I could help my friend finish, colleague, manager. She was an amazing lady. If it meant I could get her to finish sooner, because there are some days she would tell us she didn't leave work until 6:30, 20 to 7 in the evening. It's like, well, that's not right. That is just not right at all. Sometimes when there were lots of things to get done, some of my colleagues understandably didn't want to stay late. There was one occasion it meant that me and her did not leave until 7 o'clock at night. However, there was a very important piece of work that needs to get done, which would have meant either leaving late that day or coming in early the next to get it done. And the 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So there were quite a few days where that was happening. We were having issues with our landlord, quite a lot of issues at the time, issues that are still ongoing. Those issues have now been resolved because we've moved house. We now own, so we no longer have, whilst it was sort of, I guess it made for viewing, I guess it made an interesting background, that lovely old cottage, so to speak, but it didn't, it was bloody cold, because there was next to no insulation in it. If there was any, I'd say it had failed that year. If you put the heating on, it couldn't get to temperature. There were a couple of days, because of gaps in the windows, gaps in the doors, that you could say put the heating on for, let's say, 18 degrees, which is not hot, and not as hot as some people would like it. But it would get there briefly, and then it would start switching off. It would get there briefly, cold would leave, then it would need to fire itself up again. So we couldn't even run that house on a heating program. So Sarah's dad was right, we should have done so, but with Sarah being asthmatic and with how cold downstairs in that house would get, we had to run it on temperature instead, so it wouldn't get too cold. That was getting to a point where, I mean, blankets like this were constantly in use, and thicker ones, which I think one of our new acquisitions is currently using. I don't know how well it will show up on the video. This is covered in fur. We've acquired a couple of cats, So they've been taking our time the last couple of weeks. One of them is currently down there. If she hisses, don't know what's going on, but got to give her time. And it was also a case like in that house, in this new house that we got. I mean, it was only built a year or two ago. You could say, for instance, not put a jumper on, and you wouldn't. You might feel a little chilly, but you could probably just about manage through. You wouldn't need to be. And this is offensive to Geordies, and that I've got an affinity for them, especially my wife being one. You don't need to be a Geordie. You wouldn't need to have been a Geordie in this house to walk around in just a t-shirt without your jumper on. In the other house, it was a case of you had to put a jumper on, and sort of sitting there where I'd sit to do the videos when I was doing them from the computer. The window didn't shut properly, so in the middle of the window that was bloody cold. There were about 3 videos I abandoned because it was just a case of this is just too cold. And the other thing is I've changed job, so I still work for the same company. I've taken on a technical role in the business, which is based out of Edinburgh. We're still living in Suffolk, so we haven't moved miles. But I do have to occasionally visit head office. I have to, show my face. Working from home, there've been a few times I've walked into the whole, because I'm at home, I'll just work a little bit longer. I'll start a little bit earlier, and then before you know it, you've worked from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5:30 at night, not really had much of a break and not really looked after yourself. The house we bought was causing a lot of problems. Now, like I said, it's a new build, and as far as I know, that came up on the valuation we had done, there's no issues. But the seller kept threatening to take it off the market because things were taking too long. Now, that's not anything insurmountable. Patience is the only key to that. I mean, I should know all about patience. It took it out of us, to say the least. These last few months have been so mentally draining. So does that mean that Velocity Kinetic is going to do more content going forwards? I mean, there's a video about the Swace I've been working on for about 4 months now, if not more. When I first made the first bits of footage for it back in August, we are talking a very long time for it. I'd like to say there'd be more videos coming because it helps me think differently. But because of the setup we have in this house, until maybe I save up enough money to get an editing computer or something like that, there's probably not going to be as many videos going forward. So last year, the videos, I'll do it as a sort of a 2022 review as well, actually. Let me just get the YouTube channel up so I can remind myself about what videos I did and did not put out. Right, so last year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So last year was 11 videos, which compared to some other years, 11, I think it was 2021 that I'd done 11 videos by May. I've done a lot of content in 2021. 2022 content sort of dropped a bit. The quality of the content I try and maintain. I've got to be honest, since I got trolled on the... I'm saying trolled, because I'm not sure what the right definition is anymore, because it varies so much, but I'm classing trolled as unsolicited messages where the other person was not open to debate and had their own narrative and so on and so forth, that they just basically it was just a one-way stream. Now, if people messaged the page, which no one has since that person or before that I know of, the way they messaged it was like, you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about, and so on, so on, and so on. Now, I'm open to a bit of healthy debate and comments, and yes, sometimes, particularly on a subject as arguably contentious as cars, sometimes, it's going to create debate, it's going to create differences of opinion. However, that opinion should be open. That opinion should be open to being changed, discussed, influenced, even if it's just a case of becoming more informed. That person was not. So that did knock my confidence a bit, and I sort of went off the idea of doing videos. But I didn't start writing either. Stuff with Russ, obviously we lost Russ last year. That has been difficult because I could always guarantee get his feedback. And I would say Russ was... I could ask Sarah for feedback on a video, and she'll always be nice about it. And that's not a problem at all, that if she's just going to be nice about it. But Russ was one of these people, I don't know whether it's something that just comes with age, and if it does, then okay, that would be nice to have, or whether it's just who he was, or whether it was a different way of being nice about what was going on. But he was very balanced, is probably the best way to put it. He was very good, not constructive criticism, because there was not often any negatives, as in, no, you were wrong. I don't remember any, but I'm sure there were some along the way. But, I've lost a hand to steer. Now, I've asked my brother a few times to see if he would be interested in helping, acting as a steering point. He isn't interested. His views are different. I suppose it's a case of the internet culture he came up with versus the internet culture I got up with. It's not a clash in ideology, because there are a lot of things like Red versus Blue, Rooster Teeth, Achievement Hunter. I know they're all the same company, but it's a lot of different content. They're the big ones that we came up with. Granted, he got me into Red versus Blue and Achievement Hunter and Rooster Teeth. But the humour is appreciated differently. The way you use the internet is different. We've both got our own opinions on how we should move this forward, if we move it forward at all. We tried a podcast. Or was that 2021 we tried the podcast? Either way, we tried a podcast. It's not enough to say we're not going to do them, but the effort, that style of podcast, sort of, at the time I was trying to emulate Simon Whistler. So something like mega projects or side projects, geographics, biographics, the way he presents those, that's kind of how I wanted to do our podcast, but need to have a rethink. So it's not gone. As for the content that actually went out, the most viewed video was Living with a Swace, the drawbacks. There are still drawbacks to living with a Swace at times. That one was the most. It's not necessarily one I'm proudest of, not at all. Most of the videos actually hit double figures. It might sound silly, like, well, what are you wasting time for making a video that barely fits double figures? The whole point of this, more for me, and I think I've said it before in multiple videos, the whole point of Velocity Kinetics for me is to be an outlet. So put it out in a public forum. If it picks up popularity, brilliant. If it becomes a second stream of income, even better. But it's more a way for me to focus my mind on something else. And whilst I can do cooking, which I do love to do, fat jokes aside, I've got to have more than one way of venting. It's all very well cooking lots or trying new things. Again, fat jokes aside, being serious, I can't keep always using that as the escape, because obviously because one, food prices are obviously through the roof at the moment in the UK, at least compared to where they were, and it's just not necessarily a healthy thing to do depending on what you cook. Whilst there are a lot of healthy meals you can do, I suppose it also depends on how you feel in your head and in yourself. So if you're not feeling very good in your head and yourself, then you're probably going to go for more bad foods. Or sometimes the weather. When the weather's really nice, a lovely burger is amazing. This just suits the weather. So yeah, Velocity Kinetics has always just been my way of venting and trying to add my own spin to the way things are. So what are we looking at in 2023? The Swace video that I've been working on for a long time. So it was meant to be a year of Swace, and it's now going to be a year and some months of living with a Swace will be coming out. There'll be various F1 odds and ends coming out. I'm going to try doing some more just general driving videos because I need to get my what I call my GoFo. So it was a GoPro kind of camera I got off Wish. It's buggered, basically. So I've been trying to save up money to do that, and then every time I've gone to try and get one, or thought, right, I'm going to get one, I've had another expense crop up which needed to take priority. So it is what it is, but there's not a lot we can do about it. I'm not setting any goals for this year for Velocity Kinetics. Not as in I want to do X videos, I want to do this, I want to do that. What I do want to do, I can't remember if it's this year or next year the voucher expires, but when I changed roles within the business, they did a whip round like they do for anyone who leaves, and they obviously got quite a bit of money, because I've looked at doing these things myself, and they're usually 80, 90, some of them I've seen are 200 quid. It's a track day. Granted, if you were being mean, you'd say it's not a very good track day, as in you can drive a couple of supercars. I think in total it's 6 miles. That's all you can do. But if I can film that in any way, shape or form, I will do so. But that is probably going to be the only standout content, unless I get a response to a couple of emails I've sent out. Realistically, probably not going to get a response. If the subscribers on this channel had a few more noughts after it, then I could probably get what I want, command my price, and so on and so forth. But there we are. So that is where we are. That is how things have been. Going forward, the other issue I've got making videos is the house we've just left. The landlord has been a bit entitled, is probably the polite way to put it, in our leaving. And it's basically turning into a legal battle. As far as I know, we are in the right, but I'm waiting for confirmation from citizens' advice as to whether or not we are definitely in the right. The last time we had the advice from them, a year or so ago, we were, based on that, we are in the right, but there might have been amendments that have come through that we don't know of. So it's a bit tough to know what to say, but that is where we are. That is what's going on. That is what's going to happen this year. I'll maybe see if I can aim for one video a month for the rest of the year, or so long as it averages out as that, because I think that's not an unreasonable way to work. And again, I don't know whether I'm not going to say I want to do X number of how to drive or X number of we answer. It'll just be whatever it is probably the best way to put it. The videos will be whatever they are. So, yeah, do apologise if you heard rumbling, as you know, my phone's on the arm of the sofa and the light is disappearing, so good time to wrap it up. So thank you very much for watching. Usual, please like, subscribe, so on and so forth. And just look after yourselves and drive safe. Of course, he comes and makes himself comfortable after the video is recorded. This one is George. his ears back there somewhere. Look, anything about you, Georgie? There might be more of these appear on the channel. '23 will be alright.